wife around, that he was wanting to come and make amends to all the people that he had hurt in his life, and he felt bad about the way that our relationship ended back in 1978. And I was like, oh, Alan, please, don't worry about that. That was just high school stuff. Briggs, mortar, Briggs, Briggs, mortar. But nevertheless, he persisted. And he said, no, I'm going to come over to the house. And he did. Well, he came in, and I asked him to sit down. And then I sit on the furthest spout away on the couch. And we proceeded to sort of catch up over the last 30 years. He told me, he said, well, since when we broke up, I kind of went down the dark road of the bikers. And he said, then I moved to Roan Mountain, and I opened my own land surveying company. He said, and I started a biker ministry. Growing up in the bluff, he was the coolest guy in town. Got me to school on time in his rebuilt Honda. I kept him on the straight and narrow. He brought me to the edge with Keith and Joan. That was the life we led. Biker days, hard rock life. You love it when you live it, but it won't be long until your loved one's out. When Cesar breakup led him down the dark road on his 48 man chopper out of a load, surveying on the mountain, almost brought him back, but the devil had a hold on him that he just couldn't crack. Biker days, hard rock life. You love it when you live it, but it won't be long until your loved one's out. Her salvation came in the U.S. mail, just a random circular let out from Golden Hair to Myrtle Beach and sunshine and that biker gospel sound. Al was reinvented and the devil was put down. Biker days, hard rock life. You're lucky when you live it, you can find the place to toss the devil out. Conviction wasn't easy, many boulders blocked his way, but his life led him to Sturgis, and a vision was remade. A top-man view of how the time was right for him to start his ministry, and he found his sons alive. Biker days, hard rock life. If you're lucky when you live it, you can find a way to toss the devil out. You can find a way to toss the devil So, Al told me that he wanted to take me to dinner. And I said, oh, no, that's not necessary. I'm really busy and I'm working a bunch of jobs. And he said, no, next weekend I'm going to be back in town and I want to take you to dinner. Well, I tried to think of another excuse, but nevertheless, he persisted. So Friday came, and those of you who may have talked before know that there's no more boring people on the face of this planet than a teacher on a Friday evening. Well, he came to the door, and I opened it, and there he stood with a bouquet of 3 dozen orange talisman roses chocked full of baby's breath. Because he remembered that in high school, I liked baby's breath about as much as I did roses. And he said, here's the flowers, here's the chocolate. Bricks, mortar, bricks. So we went and we had dinner and had a good time, and he brought me back and he said, well, I guess I'll see you at church on Sunday. And I said, well, I don't go to White Bluff United Methodist now. I'm a soloist for West End United Methodist Church in Nashville, and I have to go there. He said, well, all right, I'll go to church there. I went, well, now, this is like a 70-voice choir, and it's not like White Bluff. They don't come down after they finish singing and sit in the congregation to listen to the sermon. He said, that's okay. I'll still come. I went, well, okay. And he goes, we'll go out to lunch after. I go, no, I can't go out to lunch. I've got a jewelry party to do, so I've got to go to work after church. Well, when I got to the choir room, my friend Glenda, she's one of the 4 fierce women, she said, so, how was your weekend? I said, well, I went to dinner with an old high school sweetheart. She went, oh. And I said, no, we're just friends. And she said, I said, he's coming to church. She went, oh. I went, no, not oh. Well, we processed down and we got up into the choir loft. You know, the choir is really bad. It's like teachers at a faculty meeting. If our kids acted like that, we'd have killed them. So she's sitting next to me and she goes, where is he? I go, well, he's over there in the second row. He's the guy with the ponytail. She looked at him and she looked at me and she said, that's one of the sweetest faces I have ever seen in my life. He would love you forever and treat you like a queen. Well, I went on to my jewelry party. Al continued to call me, and I continued to build that wall really, really high. But around after New Year's, I didn't hear from him. And I thought, good, because I didn't want to hurt him. That's great. I wonder why he's not calling me. Well, during spring break, was coming to an end, and it was a Sunday night, and I got a call from Al. I hadn't heard from him since New Year's Eve. And it was the end of March, and when he called, I said, well, where have you been? He said, I've been down in Fruitland, Florida, riding my motorcycle, praying for God to send me a sign. I mean, I'm a Methodist. Somebody says amen, and we think they've been slain in the spirit. So I try to back away from that little topic of conversation. And he said, have you got your paycheck since you've been divorced? Now, since my divorce took a long time, because he who shall not be named really drug his feet, because as long as we were married, I still had to pay for his health insurance. Well, finally, I found another lawyer. I paid for my divorce twice, and it was signed February the 14th. That is the best, the most expensive, and the only Valentine's Day present I've ever bought myself, and it was well worth it. But he didn't know that. And he said, yeah, when you're single, man, the government takes out a lot more money. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm a teacher. I make anything less, I'm going to have to pay them to go to work. Do you want to get married? I was like, who said that? And before I could have my way out of it, he goes, well, as a matter of fact, yes, I do. He said, I've been riding my motorcycle and praying for God to send me a sign. And on February the 14th, I walked into a jewelry store in Daytona Beach, and I bought you an engagement ring and a wedding band. You were the only woman I've ever loved. There, I've said it, now deal with it. Well, I was like, Alan, this is impossible. I told Mom I wouldn't marry anybody till she was dead. But he kept talking. He said, you know, if you marry me, you'll never have to work another day in your life. We'll live in Roan Mountain, and we'll live in Florida in the winter, and we'll travel all over the United States in an RV with the biker ministry. Well, he kept talking, and I kept thinking of excuses, but nevertheless, he persisted. And finally, I said, okay, not no. And I said, but I've got to go to bed. It's a school night. So he left, and I went to bed, and I thought, I'm not going to sleep a week. But you know what? I slept like a baby. The next morning, I got up to go to school, and I grabbed my peanut butter toast and my cup of coffee and got in the car. And as I was headed to Nashville, my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was Alan. He said, well, did you change your mind yet? And I didn't say that I had. I said, look, we've got to date. I can't just marry you. I said, we've got to date, and you can't tell my mama. I said, and you tell Sandra Sue she can't tell my mama. And he said, well, all right, it's only 6 hours from Roan Mountain to White Bluffs, just a motorcycle ride. I'll see you on Friday. So I got to school, and I pulled in, and I went into our music department, and there was my team, and they all said, well, how was your week? How was your spring break? And I said, I think I got engaged. And they went, what? Now, this is kind of a funny thing that you hear about our department. Cynthia was 55 years old and taught the elementary. I was 45 years old and taught the middle school and pre-K. Rance, our band director from Texas, was 35 and the most beautiful man God ever put on the face of this planet. And Alex, who was my student teacher, who was 25. So I told him the story, and Cynthia said, oh, shared history, go for it. Rance said, you don't marry in my will. Alex, the younger, said, have you lost your mind? You can't marry this guy. You don't know who he is. You haven't seen him since high school. Cynthia gave him that look, that we give young people who think they know everything, but they don't. And she went, we really don't change a lot. Well, that Friday, when I got in the car to go home, Alan called me on the way home. Well, did they change your mind? I said, no, I haven't changed my mind. Well, that Friday, I got home from school, and when I got up and pulled into the driveway, there was Alan's motorcycle, and I walked up the front steps, and there he sat sound asleep on my chaise lounge on my big front porch, and my newly rescued dog asleep with his head on Al's knee. I took that as a sign. Well, we went to Mac and Kate's. It was really a good restaurant. I'm sad that they're closed. But we went to Mac and Kate's, and he kept me laughing, telling stories about the biker ministry. And when we got home, I was laughing when I got out of the truck. And one of my semi-adopted children, Frank, was living with me at the time. And he said, what's so funny? So we had to sit on the porch, and Al told Frank all the stories. And I thought Frank was going to fall off the steps laughing. Well, when Alan left, Frank looked at me and he said, I have never heard you laugh like that. And I said, I haven't in 30 years.
Till I finally found the strength to start anew. To reconnect it.
life over to the Lord, his plan was to put on a long sleeve shirt, put his ponytail down inside his collar, and sit on the back row and be a good Christian. But God had other things in mind. He started a music ministry, and that kind of went the far winds. He's tried prison ministry, and that door closed after just a very little time because God was pushing him back into that biker world, and Al did not want to go. Well, finally he gave in, and he joined a Christian ministry. And you see, then they were really pioneers. There weren't biker ministries at every rally. And they weren't really welcomed because they were considered to be somewhat of a buzzkill. Now, Al has had rocks thrown at him. He's had a gun held to his head. And then Mad Jack at Sturgis throwing the lit sticks of dynamite into the tent. Now Al said, he says, when those sticks of dynamite blow up, the chip dust goes everywhere. And then you got to clean the coffee pots again, you got to clean the table, and you got to clean the grills and all the mixing stuff. He said, it is a real mess. He said, well, that went on for about 2 or 3 years. And on the 3rd year, Mad Jack came into the tent, now starts looking for rocks, guns, other weapons of mass destruction. And Mad Jack said, I just want you to know, me and JC got real close this winter. Now I said, you did? He said, yeah. He said, you know, I live out in South Dakota and I live off the land. I kill what I eat and I grow the other. And I just have to go into town to pick up a few essentials. He said, but it's been a long, hard, cold winter. He said, and I hadn't seen game in weeks, and the freezer was getting low. He said, finally, I was completely out of meat. He said, and I was hungry. He said, I walked out on my front porch and I said, God, I've been listening to those crazy Christian bikers for 3 years. If you exist, you show me a sign, I'll believe in you. About that time, he said a big old elk walked right into his yard. Mad Jack went inside the house, grabbed his gun, and dropped it in one shot. He said, and I fell to my knees, and I cried like a baby. He said, so I just wanted you to know, me and JC got real close this winter. Well, Alan was at that Christian ministry for a while, and he just decided he didn't like the way things were going. And when he was out in Sturgis, he climbed up on Bear Butte on his own prayer vigil, and God showed him that he wanted him to start Sons of Light. So he came back here and he started that. He started getting support and telling everybody what he was going to do, and he did Daytona Bike Week and Biketoberfest and Myrtle Beach spring and fall and Cherokee spring and fall. But when he went out to Sturgis, drive-in, 2,600 miles from Roan Mountain. He got there, and the guy who said he could set up his campground said, oh, I changed my mind. Well, Al was as mad as a wet hen. And he turned back, and he drove all the way back to Roan Mountain, Tennessee, and he said, God, if you want me to go to Sturgis, you're going to have to call me on the phone. Well, a year passed, and he did all the rallies. He had no plans to go to Sturgis until 2 weeks before Sturgis, Woody, the owner of the Buffalo Chip Campground, called and said, Al, at ministry you were with, I have asked them not to come back. And I want you to bring your ministry to my campground and be the church at the Chip. Al said, well, it's not God, but I think he might be. Now, what we do in this biker ministry is we go out to the different bike rallies at Sturgis. If you're not familiar with Sturgis, Sturgis is when 750,000 to 1.2 million bikers gather on the first full weekend in August in a town a little bit smaller than Palatka. We provide a free pancake breakfast for 15 days. We feed at times up to 1,200 people a morning. This year we went through 1,275 pounds of pancake mix, and that's before water. 90 gallons of syrup, 80 pounds of peanut butter, 80 pounds of butter. So Al starts gathering all these supplies and putting them in his trailer, and he pulled it with the RV. And all the way out there he's saying, Lord, you better send me help, because I can't do this alone. I wasn't around yet, he had a little website that nobody looked at, and he posted, "If you can get to Sturgis, come help me." Well, he'd started driving, and a couple from North Carolina said, "We saw your website, we are on our way." A couple in Iowa called him and said, "We saw your website, we're coming to help." Well, Al gets there and he starts setting up the tent, getting out the coffee pots, getting out the grills. And Carol, Woody's wife, called and she said, "Al, there's this guy at the gate from California and he says God sent him." She says, "Are you expecting somebody from California?" Al said, "I ain't got a clue who God sent him." So he hopped on his motorcycle and he rode up to the front gate, and there stood a tall, blonde man who said, "God said you needed help." Al said, "God's right." He said, "Can you cook?" 12 years, San Quentin. Al said, "You're hired." Now that man is John Horace Hawthorne, retired Hills Angel, and the vice president now of Sons of Light Biker Ministry. He was here this afternoon with his son Jonathan, and he goes out and he sets up before, because Al's working for someone else now, and he gets it all set up and going. We could not do without him. And in case you think Horace saw that on the website, Horace to this day lives totally off the grid. He did not. Well, with Horace in place, the ministry took off, and that's how I became the singing coffee girl. Now out in Sturgis, when we're cooking for all these people, I have on an apron. It has 3 pockets. In this pocket I have sugar. In this pocket I have, well, cream-flavored chemicals. And then I have coffee stirrers and our pennies with a cross punched in them that I give to every biker. Now, bikers are a lot like little old church ladies. They like to go to the same rally, they like to stay at the same campground, they like to stay in the same campsite, and they like to do the same activities. Raging against the machine. So they come up because Sons of Light was voted one of the top, #1 of the top 10 list of things to do at the Buffalo Chip. Well, it was to get over a hangover, but we're going to take it. And while they're waiting, they'll ask me to sing. And more often than not, it's what we call the Biker National Anthem, Amazing Grace. Now, I have sung Amazing Grace since joining this ministry in some of the most unique situations you could ever think of. But perhaps the most is when Lady Victoria, a wrestler, came and asked Al to marry her. And she said, "I want Nina to bring her keyboard down and sing Amazing Grace while I'm escorted down the aisle by my kangaroo." Don't panic, she didn't marry the kangaroo. So I bring the keyboard down. The bride was dressed in a lovely white leather bikini with a chiffon train. The kangaroo wore a cute little tuxedo waistcoat, and the little Joey kept popping up and looking around. As I sang Amazing Grace, I felt like I was in a Salvador Dali painting. Now, if you're sitting out there and go, "That girl is making that up," go on YouTube and search "Scooter Trash Kangaroo Wedding," and we pop up. Now, a couple of years later, we were late getting back out there. And when we did, the people in our ministry that got there before us said, "There's a man, he's been waiting to see you." And I said, "Well, okay." So the next morning I came out to the tent, and this man came running in, and he said, "Where have you been? I've been waiting to tell you. I've been waiting to tell you." Now, I remembered him. The year before, he had come up every morning. He would get his pancakes, and he'd sit at that picnic table, and he would cry. And he would cry, and he would cry. And I'd go by him, and I'd put my hand on his shoulder and pat him, or I'd just put my hand on his shoulder as I talked to somebody else, give him a little squeeze. But he couldn't even look up. And he'd try to eat, and he would cry. But before he left, he would look at me, and he would say, "Sing to me." And I'd ask him what he wanted to hear, and almost always it was Amazing Grace. But when he came into the tent that morning, he was grinning ear to ear, smiling, and he said, "I came here to tell you that last year when I was here, I was fighting a 17-year addiction to heroin. It has cost me my family, it has cost me my home, it's cost me my job." And he said, no matter how hard, I could not kick it. He said, and I was crying because I was praying to God. I said, "God, why did you send me here? Where every kind of sin you want is right at our fingertips. It's Satan's living room. I'm not strong enough for this." And he said, "I wasn't. Every day I would go back to the camp and I'd have to drink methadone. I could not kick it." He said, "But when I left for California, I decided I'm going to beat it." He said, and I started working on it. He said, and every time I feel that demon rising up and clawing at me and trying to bring me back down, he said, I'd hear you singing in my head. I'd hear you singing Amazing Grace like you were standing there. He said, and I want you to know I am clean. I have a job, I have a home, and I'm getting my family back. He said, I don't even belong to Set Free Ministry anymore. He said, I just joined up so I could get back here to tell you what had happened. He said, but you're not going to see me anymore because when I get back to California, I'm starting my own ministry and help men just like me. The Lord is in until 2008 and the Great Recession. By 2010, my husband said, well, we're going to have to do something different because the business is not earning enough money to pay employees and us. He said, I've got a job offer. I can go survey in Afghanistan. I said, I have waited 30 years to live with you. Surely there is a better plan than Afghanistan. And I said, you know, why don't I go back to teaching? I love it. I'm good at it. I said, let's just send out resumes and whoever gets the best job wins. And so we did. We sent out resumes and Daytona Bike Week, sitting in the ministry tent with 200,000 bikers zooming by, I had a telephone interview with Tuxedo Park School in Tuxedo Park, New York. Well, now, I pretended I wasn't sitting in a ministry tent with 200,000 bikers zooming by, and it must have worked because they said, well, we would like to have you come up and teach a couple of classes and interview. Tuxedo Park is a gated town that was started in 1880. The average home price is $12.5 million. So I went up, taught the classes, and they offered me the job. And I said, where do the teachers live? And they said, well, there's some villages out, and some people live in the city and commute in. And Alan said, ask them if they've got faculty housing. I'm going, it's not a boarding school. Ask them if they've got faculty housing. I go, it's not a boarding school. Ask them, do you happen to have faculty housing? Yes, we do. There'd be no living with him. They said, we have 6 apartments and 3 are going to be available. And if you accept our offer, you will have your choice. So I accepted the offer, and I chose to live on the 3rd floor of the mansion in Miss Blair's old museum. So I knew that God's hand was in this because I got hired by the one school in the nation I think it doesn't start till after Labor Day. I could still go to Sturgis. So I sat in the Sturgis tent and started making lesson plans. And we came home and we loaded our furniture and stuff in this big Jesus Loves Biker trailer, and off the Clampets went to Tuxedo Park, New York. Now, Tuxedo Park is where the tuxedo was invented. And we got there, and moving furniture up to a 3rd floor, I didn't think that through. When there's no elevator, only a handheld hoist of an elevator that was built in the 1920s. Fortunately, my daughter and her husband came and helped us get it all set. Al had to go back and finish doing some stuff with the business, and I spent my first night alone in the 3rd floor apartment. Now, in our bedroom, there was a window, and the window attached by 2 hinges at the top, and there was a rope, and you had to pull on the rope for the window to open out, and then you had to tie it off for it to stay. It was a window nowhere, it just opened to an air shaft, and the only way to get it open was to pull that rope. Well, I was laying in bed and reading, and my dog Bosco starts growling. And he is growling, and I looked down at him, and every hair was standing up on the back of his spine. He looked like a Rhodesian Ridgeback. Gums pulled back, teeth bared. Well, I followed his line of sight, and that window was open. And it stayed open for the next 10 minutes. Now, I did what I always do when things are stressful or scary or worrisome. I put my nose right back in that book and tried to read. But when the dog stopped growling, I looked, and the window was closed. And when I got up the next morning to go to school, I was getting ready, and Bosco had his nose, we had to put a curtain up to block the closet from the bedroom, and Bosco's nose was under that curtain, and he was growling and growling and growling. I had to hook him up, take him for his walk. We came back in, I unhooked him, and he ran right into that room and put his nose under that curtain and was growling. When I got home from school at 3:30, he was still there growling. The next day, So I was meeting the teachers, and they invited me to join the faculty dinner club, the faculty book clubs, like they knew me. And even the knitters and wine, and I was a crocheter. And two of the teachers in all of those groups had lived in my third floor apartment, and they said, "Have you met the ghost?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I think I have." I said, "You know, in that window with the room," and Lynn Schroed, the first grade teacher, said, "Oh, good heavens, you're not sleeping in that room, are you?" I couldn't even change clothes in there. I was like, well, okay, maybe we need to rethink the bedroom situation. So when I got home, my dog still has his nose underneath the curtain growling. I walked in and I said, "Mr. and Mrs. Blair, I have to have this job and I have to live here. But I'm a good person and I'll take care of your house, I promise." And I never felt weird in that room again. And Bosco stopped growling and got out from under the curtain. Now, there are other times. The ghost one time leaned down in my daughter and woke her up. She told him to leave her alone. I could have told him not to wake the child up. She gets real hateful. And a friend came and spent the night, and the next morning she looked at Al and she said, "Was Nina playing the piano at 3 a.m.? He goes, "I can guarantee you Nina was not playing the piano at 3 a.m. She said, "Well, somebody was downstairs," where there was a big brand in the lobby. So they were really good. He said, "Well, I don't know, maybe it's the cleaning crew." Well, that day I asked, I said, "What time does the cleaning crew leave?" They said 11 p.m. Okay. Well, the school always did a dinner auction to raise money for the school. Now, this one event, one night, would raise about $250,000 for the school. And one of the items was the Blair Hang dinner. And they would set up the ballroom where Lynn Schroed had seen Mr. and Mrs. Blair dancing, except they died in the 1880s, and have a dinner. And Mr. Burr, the head of school, would give a whole tour and explain the history of the mansion and show slides. And I had invited my former student teacher, Alex Wise, was living in New York. If he would come, I'd been asked to sing for this dinner. So I'd ask Alex, and he came up so we could practice, and he spent the night. Well, the next morning, he asked Alex, he said, "Who was playing the piano at 3 a.m.? Alex goes, "That ghost you said that didn't exist." He goes, "Oh, somebody just came and played a prank." I said, "Yeah, that sounds right. Somebody came, drove into a gated town, went into a building, and played the piano at 3 a.m. Yeah, that sounds like exactly what happened." Well, while we were at this dinner, and Jim Berger was explaining the history, a man said, "Well, Mr. Berger, what about the ghost?" And Jim said, "Well, you know, I'm staying here late most nights, and I have never seen or heard anything." He said, "But maybe you want to ask the Alberts," and we all just kind of laughed. And the guy said, "Yeah, but you know," he said, "Jacques lived up on the 3rd floor, which was in my apartment." He said, "And every time his father came, his father said he heard piano playing at 3 a.m. We turned and looked at each other and said, "Well, I guess we do have a ghost." Well, Alan took off for Canada to survey, where he was chased by wolves, had to jump out of a helicopter and planes, and had to become aware of polar bears. Later, he took a job in Kansas, and we were tired of being apart. So I decided to retire again. And my students, they said, "Miss Albert, will you please come back and tell us some more of your stories?" And I'm glad that I'm going to be able to keep that promise. And Miss Francis, our receptionist, known as the director of First Impressions, she wrote me a note and she said, "I'm going to miss you, but the thing I'm going to miss about you the most is when you would walk up to my desk and go, 'Well, like my mama always said.' So I'm going to leave you with some of my mama's sayings and wisdom. If my mama says, 'The very idea,' you are in trouble, because it means not that you did it, but that you even thought about it. And if it was coupled with 'the very idea you won't let me be nice to you,' you may as well just give it up, because life as you know it is over." My mom's 85, and one of her favorite sayings is, Well, I'm just like Miss Eleanor Hedgepath. Every morning I get up, I put on my clothes and my makeup, so that if somebody stops by and wants to go somewhere, I'm ready to go. Now, we have said this story, is a living document. It changes. We put stories in, takes it out, I forget some, say something else. And my mom, I was talking to her just last week, and she was telling me the story of someone who had been particularly annoying that week. And she said, I don't think she knows how she is. I don't think she's aware of how she comes across. She goes, well, I'm sure that we have our own quirks that we're not aware of. I can't imagine what they would be, but I'm sure we have them. So, Mama, I think I finally got it right. I'm always Nina, a Tennessee hometown girl. I'm a Tennessee hometown girl, just a Tennessee hometown girl. No matter where I go, who I meet, I always come back here to the reason for my song, to the place where I belong. One little place, a coach house apartment on a huge estate up the Hudson from New York. I had a job I loved, teaching music to the kids of the millionaires who lived down the road. An imposing mansion where I slept every night, playing the piano, playing Ghost and tuxedo work school. The teachers worked their magic in a castle on a hill, reaching children with their hearts of purest gold. Are you from the South, they ask? Well, bless your heart, I am. How did you know? Now, that's the sarcastic version. But there is a sincere bless your heart. Are you from the South, they ask? Well, bless your heart, I am. How did you know? I'm a Tennessee hometown girl, just a Tennessee hometown girl. My life is led away from the folks I love, but my memories are clear. Oh, that made me strong in the place where I belong. Why, Tennessee is a lovely little town, but it's our little town. You can't be lonely here, but I do know back then, when I left to take the world, I was gone, and everyone who loved me was here. There's Aunt Georgie and Aunt Carolyn, Rudy and Sam, Mama Hope and Daddy Bull, Alan Lorraine. Remember Ronnie and Miss Hazel, Tootsie, Al and Hammer Dill, and the stories of Slick Odom still live on. Slick Odom had a UFO spotting pig. Yep, that's what I said, a UFO spotting pig. Now, he was not just a white bluff celebrity. I mean, national shows, the Ralph Emery Show, the Teddy Bart Show, and the Noon Show were asking him to come and bring the pig. Now, one day, Slick walked into Mike's Grocery, where my brother sacked groceries, I think from the time he was 9, and I know until he graduated. And Miss Helen Mike was behind the corner, and she said, now, Slick, how do you know that the pig has spotted a UFO? And he said, oh, it's real easy to tell. Because he rears up on his back hooves, and he paws the air in the direction of the UFO. And when I look, I see one. Well, the big day came when Slick Odom received a letter from Johnny Carson at the Tonight Show wanting to fly Slick and the pig to beautiful downtown Burbank and to be on the show. But Slick was afraid to fly. Johnny wouldn't put him on the train. So he just remained a Tennessee celebrity. And you could see him riding around White Bluff His car rode on top of the car on the roof, and his pig sat in the back